So following on from the previous two videos, I asked you to write this down somewhere and write this down somewhere and always have it in front of you when you're learning. Okay. And by the way, ingrain this in your mind as well. Ingrain this in your mind. But for the time being, write this down and always have it in front of you. Okay. So in the previous video, we've shown this. Now we are going to look at these two. So when you try and differentiate tan theta, so tan theta, differentiate it. So when you try and differentiate tan, or theta or x, it doesn't matter. So if you try and differentiate tan of x, well, rewrite the tan of x as sine. Remember, tan is sine divided by cos. Sine divided by cos. Well, rewrite tan as this. Now use the product rule. You could use a quotient rule. So rewrite it as this times this to the power of -1. So now we're going to use the product rule. So at the moment you've got this thing time multiplying with this thing here. So the product rule would be to differentiate this, leave this alone, and then plus leave this alone and then differentiate this. Okay, so first part of the product rule, at the moment you've got this thing multiplying with this thing. So now we're going to apply the product rule. Differentiate this, leave this alone. So when you differentiate this, it will give you this. Leave this alone, and that's you leaving this alone. And then plus, and then the second phase would be to leave this alone. That's us leaving it alone. And then differentiate this. Now when you differentiate this, that would be -1. And then the bubble here stays intact, but then the power here gets minus by 1. But then you've got to use the chain rule and differentiate the derivative. Well, you've got to find the derivative of the bubble itself. So that will be minus sine of x. Okay. So tidy this thing up, and it will give you this. Because when you think about it, at the moment you've got this. You can think of it as being like this. You've got this block times this block times this block times this block here. If you merge these two together and then merge these three together, well, think about it. This whole thing here will become this, because this thing here is really 1 over cos squared of x. So now this, well, think about it. This whole thing here will become this, and this thing here is really is cos of x over cos of x, because you've got this thing multiplying with this thing. Well, this thing here is 1 over cos of x, and then you're multiplying with the cos of x, so it gets multiplied to the top. Well, anyway, this whole thing here will become this, and then blah blah blah, blah blah blah. It will then become this. Okay, it will then become this, and then well, you can break this up as being one fraction multiplying with another fraction. So what is 1 over cos of x? Well, your diagram, cos of x normally goes in this direction, but then going in the opposite direction would mean secant. Okay, so this thing here is secant, this thing here is secant, so it will be secant times secant, so that would be secant squared. Okay, so that's the first part done. Now now we need to differentiate the secant of x. So what is the secant of x? Hang on. So the secant of x, visualize it like this. So normally the secant of x is this thing here. This is the one I asked you to memorize. Secant of x here is going in this direction. Remember, cos would be in this direction, so secant would be 1 over cos of x. So the secant here is actually 1 over cos of x. So when you try and differentiate this, that's the same as you trying to differentiate this thing here. Well, rewrite this as to the power of -1, and then now this gets moved down to here. And then the bubble itself stays intact, and then this here gets minus by 1, and then now we could find the derivative of the bubble itself, which would be minus sine of x. So that will be tidy this whole thing up here. It will give you this. So now break this up. break this up as being one fraction multiplying with another fraction. What is this thing here? Well, visualize this thing in your mind. Normally cos of x goes in this direction, so this is the normal cos of x, but then you going in the opposite direction would mean it's a secant. So this thing here is secant. Okay, and then what is this thing here? This thing here, well, the height here is sine of x, the across here is cos of x. So this thing here is actually tan. Okay, so this is secant, this is tan. So it becomes this secant times tan. Okay, so we in the previous video we've shown this. In this video, when you differentiate tan of x or theta, it will give you this thing here. When you differentiate when you differentiate this, it will give you this thing here. Sorry, it won't give you this thing here. It will give you this thing here. Sec theta times tan theta. Okay, sorry about that.